Welcome to the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology podcast. We have some really big stuff out there ahead of us over the next year or two in astrology. All 5 of the outer planets are going to be changing signs between now and 2026 fully. And 2 of the big ones that are going to kind of kick the domino on this are in Pisces right now. Talking about Saturn, which has been on about a 2-year transit through, and as we are recording this, is at 19 degrees Pisces. And then Neptune, which is almost got itself out, not quite, then retrograde slammed on the brakes. It's going to go backward for a little while, and then it finally moves into Aries next year, along with Saturn, and they will actually conjunct as they move into Aries of new beginnings. But I've been noticing, Robert, that there are a lot of things that are coming out in the culture. We see it in the news. We feel it. Our families are experiencing it, where some of the shadow sides of Pisces are coming out. And it seems like there's this push. You can really feel it, that there's something going on relative to, especially, the truth coming out. And I was wondering the other day, as I was thinking about this, is this more 29 degrees Pisces that Neptune is trying to wrap up this about 12 or 13-year transit? Or is this what we're going to be expecting when it moves into Aries? Is it going to be that, be sure that your sins will find you out kind of thing?
Well, both actually, and you're very right. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012, so for 12 years. And one of the key words that I use with Neptune is, and Pisces as well, is dissolving. And it does rule dissolving. Neptune and Pisces both are almost limitless for both positive and negative dissolution in the chemical sense of the word. So the minute you think you know something, or the minute a scientist makes a discovery and proves it, along will come with Neptune and Pisces a further discovery that tends to dissolve the first one, or complicate the first one, or contradict the first one. So if you begin to understand this dissolvingness quality of Neptune and Pisces, then you begin to get a sense of both its positive and negative meanings. And this is dependent on what house Pisces falls on, what house cusp in a person's natal chart, because it will affect those house matters very directly. So on the negative side with Pisces or Neptune, you have secrets and sorrows, and you can remember those by the keywords for the 12th house and the 12th sign, Pisces: secret sorrow, self-undoing. So you get bad habits like drinking and drugs and smoking. Neptune and Pisces also rule poisons and toxins and contamination and pollution. But in essence, where you find Pisces by house, there are likely to be secrets, and some important secrets involving that house. You have Pisces on the 3rd, let's say. Do you have step siblings? Do you have a secret sibling? Maybe one that you never knew about. Are you adopted? I never knew it. Same on the Pisces on the 4th. Secrets involving your home, your parents, your family. Pisces also rules susceptibility, meaning physically. It rules weakness. So Neptune conjunct or in hard aspect to another planet, say if you have, as I do, Sun conjunct Neptune, there can be a weakness of the organ ruled by that planet. In my case, it's the heart. My heart is fine now, but it would not have been fine had I not gotten a handle on drinking, as everybody knows, because I was raised in an alcoholic family that goes back for generations. Had I not found astrology and continued to drink, then my heart would absolutely have given out. So Neptune can weaken whatever it touches. It can create confusion about what it rules or what it touches. It can create contradictions and deceptions and lies and gaslighting and hypocrisies and dysfunction, both mental and physical dysfunction. So it certainly rules alcohol and drug abuse, among other things. It also, Neptune and Pisces both rule escapism, which is a really big factor in this, because many of us, it's easy to try and escape responsibilities or escape accountabilities for our own actions and choices, for example. Pisces and Neptune also rule past life bleed-throughs. People born with their sun in Pisces, for example, really do tend to live with one foot in the non-physical or pre-physical reality, as well as one foot in this reality. And they're very sensitive, unconsciously, to other people's emotional tones. So it becomes very important for people with a strong Pisces-Neptune configuration to be discriminating in who they spend time with, especially who they marry, for example, because it does rule deceit. And because of that, people can be drawn to other people who present themselves in one way, but turn out to be liars, cheats, and frauds, or even criminals. So that's some of the negative side. The positive side of Pisces and Neptune have to do with creativity and spirituality, and especially with dreams and imagination, because those are gateways into a higher sort of consciousness rather than the mundane, limited to the physical world consciousness. So Neptune and Pisces have very much to do with spirituality, with the arts, all of them, with healing, which can be alternative healing as well as traditional medical healing, with compassion, which is the ability to empathize with other people and to be sensitive to what you're saying and how you behave toward other people. Neptune and Pisces have a great deal to do with astrology and metaphysics and rituals and so on. So we've got these transits, especially with Neptune transiting Pisces for the last 12 years. And you can see what it's done worldwide in terms of information. It's gotten progressively more and more difficult to know what's true and what's factual. Everybody seems to be lying to promote their own agenda. And then Saturn has joined it in Pisces since 2023, which has brought all of this to a boil. Politically, we can see it around the world, but also in our personal lives. Both those planets will enter Aries and conjunct each other in June of 25, right around June of 25. They retrograde a little bit back into late Pisces in July of 25, and then they will conjoin again in early Aries of new beginnings in February of 26. So that's what we're looking forward to. Because when Saturn and Neptune both ingress into Aries, and this is true for the entire world, that does represent an era of new beginnings for everybody around the planet. What we are in now, however, is a massive collective ending cycle for the world. Nonetheless, I'm really looking forward to the new beginnings that basically come in the beginning of 2026, when both Saturn and Neptune will get out of Pisces and into Aries. It's very exciting. Meanwhile, it's very dangerous because of the inability of most people to know what's true and what's real. And of course, we're seeing the emergence of artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is eating up the electric grid like nobody's business. There are tons of articles on how much electricity artificial intelligence uses, because these things require massive amounts of computer powers, advanced chips, but also massive amounts of cooling systems because they create so much heat. So we are really at an epical turn in human civilization here, and that's really what this coming transit of Neptune and Saturn into Aries corresponds with. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense. And the other thing, too, when you consider these two planets or any planets, they periodically go into retrograde motion. And everybody's frightened about retrogrades. But in fact, if you just think of any word, any word that begins with re, and apply it to the retrogrades, it can be retrograde Mercury, it can be retrograde Saturn, retrograde Neptune. Words like repair, revisit, renew, restore, refurbish, remodel, resurrect, reconnect, refine, restrict, revise, rehabilitate, record, return, retain, reform, repay, retreat, recycle, regroup, and so on. Any word. So there are very natural periods when planets are retrograde to apply these words, especially refine. During a rephase, a retrograde phase, you are meant to be aware of what isn't working and refine it or repair it. You may have to just let it go because it has turned out not to be work. One of the definitions of insanity is trying the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. But so refinement under the retrograde periods is a terrific word to remember. So those things are, I think, big considerations when you're dealing with Neptune and Saturn and Pisces here. But it's always rewarding to explore the house with Pisces on it, and then look to see where Jupiter, which co-rules Pisces, and Neptune fall, because they will give you further clues to it. And you can often get big clues as to important secrets involving those houses. If you have, say, Pisces on the 8th house at birth, all of your life, you want to be very cautious and very explicit and very clear in any significant financial dealings. You don't take anybody's word for anything with Pisces on the 8th. You hire a financial advisor, you pay them. You hire an attorney, you pay them, because it could be your best friend or your spouse. Oh, no, this is a great investment. We should put our money in this. And they may be very well-meaning. Meanwhile, they're missing some essential element with Pisces there that will cause you to lose everything. Whereas if you had simply proceeded on professional advice, hired advice, get an attorney's opinion, get a doctor's opinion. Don't trust what you see on TikTok, for heaven's sake. So with Pisces on any particular house, it's a two-edged sword. It can be a wonderful, idealistic house that you can have deep insights into, and even spiritual and psychological breakthroughs. But it can also be a house where you tend to escape responsibility if you're not careful, and where you can drown, figuratively speaking. Neptune and Pisces both rule drowning. Now, that can be metaphorical, but it can also be literal.
Okay, so we know that a planet gets stronger when it nears a sign change or a cusp, right?
Yes.
Saturn is not quite, I would say, in that zone of close. It's 11 about degrees out now, and it's in retrogrades. But over the next year, Saturn is going to be closing in on that same 29-degree point that Neptune is now. What's going to transpire, do you think, when Saturn is blending energies in a conjunction with Neptune right there on that cusp?
In your own life, every one of us, since basically 2023, when Saturn entered Pisces, every one of us has been undergoing a transitional period from the past, maybe even the past 30 years or so, moving toward the beginning of the next 30 years of our life, and moving toward this new start when Saturn ingresses into Aries at the beginning of 2026. So all of us are aware that our lives are in a transition which can be wonderful since 2023 in terms of, at least I can speak for myself, and I think for you too, in terms of our spiritual and metaphysical growth, which is very consistent with Saturn in Pisces. I've never been this connected, I hesitate to say to the divine, but that's what it is, in my life, and it's wonderful. At the same time, I am losing friends, old friends, right and left. I'm not dying, but they are. So death, which is very much a part of Pisces and Neptune, and your attitudes about it are hitting home. People are experiencing the losses of jobs that they've been in for years, sometimes decades, which throws them then into a position of, what do I do now? And even those who are not losing a job, they may be at the end of their rope with a present job and really yearning for something new and more involving and maybe something more meaningful to do with their lives professionally. So they're searching. So if you think of the two fish in the Pisces symbol tethered together, one is facing backward, the other's facing forward. So this period is about letting go of what has reached its natural ending or what is no longer working for you. At the same time, simultaneously, you are welcoming these new elements, including new people and new ideas and new goals into your life. And those will materialize basically at the beginning of 2026. Now, it can be a time of loss and sorrow. People can lose dear old friends. They can lose spouses of many years.
Family.
And family. And there can be that element of Piscean sorrow and loss. And some people get very caught up in that, and they can stay there for the rest of their lives. Many people never get over a divorce, or they never get over the death of a loved one. And that's okay too. That's a choice that we make. But others of us learn that death and rebirth are natural cycles in life. We're going to die and be reborn. And we have been, if we've lived over 30 years. It's all figurative, but someday we're literally going to lose our bodies. The soul doesn't die, but it's a natural cycle. So many people will accept loss and sorrow, and they'll mourn that, but they will also understand why it was necessary. And they will begin to see the positive, freeing aspects of those things. So that sometimes when you lose a loved one or lose family members, it's an external signal that everything they represented in your life is slipping out of your life and actually freeing you to be more who you now are, without the constraints of trying to please maybe a negative person or a negative family. So these cycles do have an element of sorrow and loss, but they can also be incredibly freeing and positive. Depends on which way the fish faces.
Exactly. We haven't even talked about that, right? But one thing that I love is the expression, I'm living my highest timeline. And to me, it's a mental image of exactly the duality represented in astrology, that at any given time, we have a choice to take the high road or the low road. And the highest timeline to me just projects, I'm doing my best to choose the high side of things. So as this convergence of Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees Aries and finishing up at 29 degrees Pisces and all of these things that are happening, what are your suggestions on living our highest timeline through this based on the astrology?
Well, exactly what you said. Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, if you're smart, mean do everything that you can and learn everything that you can about how to directly communicate with your higher self. You can call that God or the all that is, or your spirit guide, or your higher consciousness. You can call it anything. But there is where you will find the answers about what do I want to do and what should I do to make my life the best life it can be from going forward. And there is usually a collective element in this. Is there something I can do with my life, even locally in my town, to help the collective in my town? Maybe it's a talent that I have. You may have a dream or dreams, another great thing to connect to in this period that excite you or prompts you to think about what the dream means in terms of your conscious life, to carry the non-physical dream messages into this life and begin to take actions. Aries, Mars, actions. Take actions on fulfilling the spiritual and creative side of yourself. But that's the main thing to me, is to find out, if you don't know already, how to directly connect this side, which everybody has, the higher self, it's called. And it is yourself. It's just on a greater level and much more aware. But there are exercises that have been written about for thousands of years that allow people to do this. And once you've done it, you never go back, and you don't need to. And it is always there and always available.
So I'm thinking, okay, one thing we could do, and we can't do this here, we're out of time already, but we could find Aries in our chart, and wherever that house is and wherever that's lying in the chart in that context, are we looking for new opportunities in particularly that area?
Yes, and also you're looking for the true you, where you find Aries. The true you, I am, the old keyword for Aries. And the house that it rules is where you are most yourself and most at home and most authentic. But you have to think about that sometimes, depending on the house cusp where Aries falls. But that's a big clue for anybody where they can actualize the I am in their horoscope by the house where they find Aries on the cusp.
Okay, and let me ask this. What kind of hombres are we dealing with when Saturn and Neptune are together in Aries for us personally? Is that a good symbolism at the beginning of Aries as we're starting that 2026 and beyond? What for Neptune will be 12 or 13 years, for Saturn will be a couple of 2.5, 3. Are we talking good thing, or are they coming in white hat or black hat?
It depends on the person. If you're somebody like I am or you are, it's a great thing. If you have been playing the victim all of your life and you've tried to escape responsibility for your actions and your speech all of your life, it's going to look like a very negative thing, because the chickens will come home to roost, very often in the form of legal and financial pressures. Saturn, the judge. So if you've been living a lie, then Saturn Neptune conjunct in entering Aries will bring the lie home, sometimes in a very painful way. But in fact, it's a wonderful blessing. People who've been getting by with murder, literally or figuratively, people who've been cheating all of their lives, lying all of their lives, gaslighting other people, manipulating other people, all of those chickens will come home to roost under Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries, and very painfully so, usually through the legal system. On the other hand, if they've been trying to heal themselves, if they've been getting therapy for their issues, and they've been working on themselves, those chickens come home to roost too, and it becomes a huge payoff for them. So if you've honestly been trying to actualize your best self, your most authentic self. And I mean, this can mean doing what you really want to do. There's an old story about a young girl who, well, not so young, she was 26. And her grandmother said to her, "You're 26 years old. You've never done anything with your life. I want you to tell me without thinking and without censoring, And I don't care whether you think you can do it or accomplish it or not, but tell me right this second, what do you really want to do? And the girl says, I want to be an actress. And the grandmother says, then do it. And sure enough, the 26-year-old becomes a celebrated actress within a year. And it's true. This is a true story. That girl got a contract with Universal, and within a year, boom, she was on a television series, and there the sky's the limit. So it's a wonderful little metaphor for how to think about this. If you're confused, uncertain, ask your inner child, what do I really want to do? And don't censor. And take what you hear and begin to think about how can you implement that starting from your present, especially at the beginning of 2026. So that's what I mean by the chickens coming home to roost there at the beginning of 26, because it really will repay you for all the positive things you've been trying to do for yourself. If you've been evading doing anything for yourself or blaming other people, or you're being a victim, or you're an addict, or whatever your issues are, those will come home to roost too. But there's a good message in there. If you finally get caught and you're finally forced to take responsibility for how you've been behaving, that can also free you finally from having to repeat all that ever again. See, so it's a mixed blessing, but if you're conscious, that's the key word. If you're conscious, you can make a tremendous change throughout your life with this coming aspect in Aries.
I'm truly fascinated by this. Obviously, you and I both have a Sun-Neptune relationship. So let me ask this then. We know that Neptune, having moved through Pisces since, I believe, 2012 full on, that's been a time of revival. There's been a lot of spiritual awareness. You said already, I am closer to the divine. I'm more connected now. Okay, that's happened for a lot of people. A lot of people can look back on that and see that. The other thing that has happened is there has been a lot more, and you mentioned it as well, lies and deception across the plane. And everybody is familiar with that too. What do you see in Aries? Do you think Aries will be more, greater, Aries, Mars, more power, lies and deceptions, or more change to the positive, or more, let's get this out, get it exposed, and move on with something new?
It's a tough question because lies have always existed throughout history, propaganda, and so on. And we're certainly seeing a battle for that around the world. Personally, it's up to us. It's really just what I said. For me, it's a wonderful new start. But then I'm very conscious about refining my life. My hardest one right now is just let go of sugar. Very simple. Because I enjoy desserts, but I can't eat them anymore. They're bad. And they are. Sugar is a huge toxin. So I'm having to refine my life, and I want to. It's not something I don't want to do. I want to do it, but it doesn't mean it's easy. But it's a very simple thing. So that's really to the nuts and bolts of your question. If people persist in lying to themselves and thinking they can get by cheating other people or lying to other people or manipulating other people or committing fraud with other people, they'll keep trying. But Saturn and Neptune in Aries tends to mitigate against that. The more they try to continue their old ways, lying and cheating and being fraudulent, the more likely it is that the authorities will come down on them with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, far more so than the authorities coming down on them when Saturn and Neptune were in Pisces, because there's always a way to evade when it's Pisces. Always. There is no way to evade under Aries. You follow the difference?
Yes, absolutely. And so, what a great contrast. I know a lot of people who I know and I talk to would say, if that's going to be the outcome, can we just time warp up to 2026?
Well, and listen, I got the moon in Aries and I'm as impatient as they come. I've had to learn it over the years, and I have, but I am impatient. Once I know something, it should already be done. Meanwhile, no, it takes work to get there. and it takes time and commitment to get there. I wish there were a magic wand, but that also is fairly immature. So.
All right. Well, you can be working on that until February of 26. All right. Thank you very much for this, Robert. This has been excellent. And if you'd like to talk to Robert about a reading for your own self, go to the show notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time on the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology Podcast with Robert Glasscock.